What's up, guys? David Baye here, back again with another episode of MD All Access. We have a very special guest on our show this week, four-time Mr. Olympia, three-time Arnold Classic champion. Can't forget that one, Jay Cutler. How you doing, Jay?
Everything's good, man. Ever since I gave you a hard time about those Arnold Classics, you've been very consistent in remembering those, huh?
Yeah, you busted my balls a little bit about that. I was like, I'll make sure.
You know what it is, when I wasn't able to win the Mr. Olympia against Coleman, I was going to the Arnold and I won 3 consecutive years, which I don't think anyone did that. I don't think it's been done. So 02, 3, and 4, and then I sat on the sidelines after 04. I sat out 05 thinking I was going to win the Olympia that year, but it just happened to be the next year I actually won. So I'm pretty proud of my Arnold Classic victories, and
absolutely.
I gained a lot of notoriety because that. I think it was, like it is now. I mean, the second most elite show, the one in Ohio, that is. I think they've kind of watered it down a little bit by creating all the Arnolds internationally. I don't think it's the same as winning the Ohio one because you don't get the caliber that you did. And usually the guy that finished at the Arnold Classic was a front runner for the Mr. Olympia competition,
Yeah, I still think, when we talk about Arnold Classic champions, I still think, the one in Columbus, that's your Arnold Classic champion. And the ones that we have internationally have turned out to be good shows and good for the fans. But I agree, the one in Columbus, that's the big one. That's the big title guys are going for.
Yeah, we were winning Hummer trucks back then. I mean, I won 3 H2 Hummers there, and Coleman won H1 the first year, and I was competing twice a year during those times, and it was like, I was trying to peak, and being a bigger guy, everyone knows how difficult that is. So, I would take home that, I won, Rolex watches, all that stuff. So it was like, I was happy going and getting that paycheck and getting that title, and that status to roll into the Mr. Olympia, being a front runner. And obviously it worked because I was, runner up for 4 different occasions to Coleman before I won it, and kind of set the standard for what I became.
Yeah. Now we're going to talk about some of your Olympia accomplishments and some of that stuff a little bit later on. Let's just get caught up with what you got going on now. It seems like following you on social media and stuff like that you're busier traveling now than ever.
Yeah, you know what? I'm fortunate. I've been still very. I've been very in tune with fitness. I promote the shows. I, have Cutler Nutrition that brings me a lot of places. I'm doing, guest appearances a lot. I'm doing a lot of tours now with the military. I did some stuff internationally with the USO recently. I have a visit this coming week, actually with the Marines in Camp Lejeune. So, I mean, it's just, I'm doing a lot of things as what I like to call the ambassador of bodybuilding. I'm still consider myself as a former champion, to still have that ambassadorship of, still being representing and trying to create more awareness to the health and fitness market. And I say health and fitness, I mean, that's what I look at it. I know people tend to, downplay that a little bit and say, hey, Jay, you're a bodybuilder, and it's, I wouldn't call it health and fitness, but the truth is, I mean, that's what I got into. That's what I wanted to do in the very beginning, was just to work out. I never planned on being Mr. Olympia. I never planned on being, a so-called ambassador. I never planned on traveling the world and seeing all these different cultures. And it's just awesome to do that. And still, I mean, I'm 43 now. I'm still training. I mean, you guys can see I'm putting out YouTube stuff on my Jay Cutler TV YouTube channel. And I'm active on social media. I still work with the clothing brands, and I'm doing a lot of stuff outside now. A lot of medical stuff, and I'm working behind the scenes on a lot of different projects, and basically just keeping everything in line for 2017. I got a lot going on, and we'll be at all the major trade events, and continue to work towards being better at my age and continue to improve.
Now, it seems like, or at least on my end, it seems like yourself and Kai and Phil and even some of the old school guys like Sean and Kevin and Flex seems like you're doing a lot more international stuff over the course of the last few years than in previous years. Is that kind of the direction it's headed as far as your appearances? And if so, what do you think's driving, the international market for bringing in big names like yourself for appearances and expos and stuff like that?
What's crazy, Dave, is that when I was competing at the Mr. Olympia in the Arnold Classics and those kind of things, I didn't travel a lot internationally. I refused a lot. And at the time, I just didn't want to go over there because I was so focused on training, so focused on the diet, and just trying to be better. And I knew that it would throw me off because of the time changes and the facilities of training and obviously the food. You've been internationally, you know how hard it is sometimes to get the right kind of foods.
Absolutely.
So I didn't do a lot. I was so in demand, even when I wasn't Mr. Olympia, every weekend in the United States. Remember, I had a contract with Max Muscle stores back then. So I was contracted. I was like one of 2 or 3 athletes, and I was the highest recognized one. So every week I was booked at a Max Muscle store pretty much. That's when they were bringing in all the athletes. I do meet and greets.
Sure.
Was doing, nutrition, other nutrition stores. I was doing guest posings at shows. So to be honest, as much as time I had between training for the Arnold and then training for the Olympia, so I would break after March, and basically March to June was the only time I could really travel. Then I locked down and trained for the competition. So I wouldn't go to a lot of those events. And when I did start, we didn't have as many trade events. There weren't Arnold Classic internationally. Body Power, I was the first athlete. I think Kai Green was the first year. I was the second one. They based the show around my schedule for Body Power. And then, we didn't have the Brazils and Spains and all those other kind of things going on. So, we didn't have as much appearances. People would pay, but remember, to get us over there, it's the flight, business class, and then my pay was so high, my demand for what I wanted to be able to travel over there, because I could book everywhere in the United States for great money. So why would I travel internationally?
Why sit on a plane for 10, 12 hours? Yeah.
So I didn't do a whole lot. So now there's so many opportunities, and I feel the international market has grown, especially with the supplement market and these trade events and expos. Listen, if there wasn't expos around a lot of these shows, the shows wouldn't be in existence. It's become a trade show event. Booths, the athletes show up. They're shaking the hands. They're like the draw. So,
absolutely.
That's why I'm there. I'm there because obviously there's a platform now that wasn't there before.
Yeah.
So,
now, when you were competing, now I think it's well recognized that as far as doing the business of bodybuilding, out of any former bodybuilder right now, you're by far in the most demand, the most popular. You're traveling the most. When you were actually competing, were you thinking about what you were going to do on the business end when you were done competing? Did you have kind of a game plan going into motion before you actually retired?
The only game plan that I had to continue to be out there and be active is the brands. And when I did a lot of these branding with endorsements, I had a lot of signature, and my relationships were based off of profit sharing in these companies, where I was able to continue to have long-term deals, and it wasn't based off, Jay's a great bodybuilder. It was more because of my relationships, and a lot of my endorsements, partnerships went off because I had great relationships, and I started with sometimes no money, and some of these were startup companies. So for me, I knew that I still would continue to be active. Little did I know that the industry would continue to climb like it did. And remember, I was in magazines transpiring into social media, but I was still, I think, the leader, and still the leader. Like even on Facebook, I have almost 10 million social followers between all my channels, which I think is one of the biggest in the big name market people. Yes, I'm not saying in fitness there's definitely more people. There's people on there with bigger Facebooks, but as far as achievement type athletes where, Mr. Olympia titles or those kind of things, I still have the biggest social following. Kai Green, I think, is second to me between Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. So yes, it's like a job now to keep up with social media, put things out there. But the truth is I just live my life and I let filming go on around me. And I think that's what's ideal, is everything you see is real. It's not set up where it's like, okay, I'm going to set up this shot or do whatever. I just continue to just be Jay Cutler. And fortunately for me, I was an underdog for a lot of years. I think that helped build the brand. But I think a lot of it, to be honest, is just, my relationships with the fans. And I think people respect what I did. And, not only beating Ronnie Coleman, but coming back and winning the title from Dexter Jackson after I lost. Although I think bodybuilding has changed a lot now. People don't look at, on social platforms, bodybuilders as much as they do fitness personalities, meaning YouTube people, Instagram people, those kind of things.
Sure.
Because we need more. Has to be more interaction rather than a guy just goes to the gym and lifts weights and eats meals all day. You have to know how to communicate and be personable with the fans, and that's what I continue to do. I mean, at these trade events, I still get those lineups, and I'm still there, and I'm still going to continue to do a lot of great things. And if you ask me, what's your game plan in 10 years? I mean, listen, I don't think I'm going to be standing at every expo in the world, but I'm going to be somewhat active, whether it be on the promotional side. That's ideally what I want to do, is I want to stay on the promotional side. I have those contests now that I promote in all the different states. I'm trying to expand internationally with that and do what Arnold did. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is to just have the opportunity for these guys to compete. I want to give platforms for everyone to become great on stages. And that's really what my whole goal is to motivate people at this point. Because listen, it's not about winning titles and all those things anymore. It's about giving people the influence and the security and the positive influence of what I did through my achievements, which I never thought would be, into someone else's ideas. Oh, it's motivation for me. I really thought about just winning all the time, to be honest, and just being great. And along came, a huge support team. I hate to call them necessarily fans because they're more supporters. And it's given me the motivation to continue, because that's what motivates me now, is still the letters and, the messages every day. And, I'm still fighting Father Time, man. It's not like I'm, 23 anymore. I was the youngest guy coming in, and now I'm sitting at, out there where everyone's still trying to get me to come back and compete. And I'm not all about that anymore. I'm just all about just trying to be, better and continue to be one of the success stories of the business, but be an influencer for people to become better.
Absolutely. I get questions all the time, Jay's got these huge lines at the expos. What do you think that's attributed to? And obviously your personality, your relationship with the fans, that goes a really, really long way. But one of the things that I've brought up in a handful of conversations, and I wanted to get your take on, is I think when you were competing and you were battling it out with Ronnie, you had the Ronnie Coleman fans, you had the Jay Cutler fans, and then, in the later years of Ronnie's competing, when you started winning, everybody wanted to see you win, but like we always see in bodybuilding, after you won a few times, the fans wanted to see a new champion. So then it was like, we want somebody else. And then when you finally retired, it was like, well, now just everybody just loves Jay because they're not rooting for him or necessarily against him. I mean, how do you think not being on a competitive stage and not having people root for the other guy has affected your popularity?
You know what? It's, when you retire, people get different views of how you were. And like I said, it was magazines that displayed. I'm going to explain something, and I want people to understand, and they'll say, wow, Jay's right about this. And I've been saying this lately. The magazines, and Joe Weider, I was contracted by, Muscle and Fitness. And then, of course, I signed with Muscular Development later on. But they always created an image that was positive for everyone. No guy was ever an asshole or like a jerk in the magazines that they wrote articles about. They were always, always in tune with their diet and their training, this and that. So they created this aura on every athlete. They took great pictures. Bleckman's, a perfect example of this. He always wanted great pictures and never put out crappy images of athletes. So, and Joe Weider was the master of this. And I think, Bleckman owes a lot of credit to Joe Weider for this, and he'll tell you that. But we are always displayed in a positive manner. And what's changed now is on social media, you can follow anyone, and then, you hear them talk, or you see them do certain things. It changes your perspective on them.
Right.
It now opens them up to have a lot of, negative comments and people see them in a different light, because sometimes they open their mouths and the people don't hear what they like to see, right? But when you read in magazines, the guys come alive in those magazines. And I remember I was in the magazines from 20 years old forward, so I was always in there very frequently, and people learned, wow, Jay's a dedicated guy. He lived a clean lifestyle. It's never anything negative. And a lot of the guys, when they would do their articles, would say, "Oh, Jay's my idol," or "Jay's a guy's career I want to follow because I had great success in it." There really wasn't a game plan of that. If I was sitting there and telling you, yeah, I knew exactly what I was going to do, it'd be a lie. I just, like I said, did what I did because I was passionate about it, and that was the difference. I think nowadays the guys aren't as passionate. They're more passionate about their social influence and getting notoriety in that sense, where I just love to train, and that's why I continue to do what I do on a daily basis. Even at my age and being retired, I still follow a training split. I still eat the meals. I'm still in the mix. Am I a fan of bodybuilding? Probably not as much. I don't sit there and watch the shows as frequently. I do watch the amateurs to see who's coming up, especially in my competitions. But I really just, there's so many divisions and the shows are so lengthy. It's just really hard to stay in tune with everything. I mean, I kind of know what's going on in the pro scene. Like you said, there's these battles going on between, different guys. I don't follow that as much because I don't really follow the negative things. It's more positive stuff.
Sure. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about this year's Olympia. Everybody knows that you and Phil Heath have had a really close relationship since he started competing. You guys, obviously were on stage a handful of times together. He actually beat you with his first Olympia win. Phil racked up number 6 this year. He tied Dorian Yates. He's behind Arnold. He's behind Lee Haney and Ronnie Coleman. But, he hasn't had any major injuries. He's had a couple of close wins, but he doesn't really show any signs of slowing down. Do you think it's feasible that Phil gets to 9 or 10 wins?
I think he'll win 10. That's my prediction. And I say that in no offense to the other athletes. Don't get me wrong, because I know if I was competing and I was behind Ronnie, trust me, I was there, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're not going to beat him." But remember, Ronnie, I was able to beat Ronnie because Ronnie aged. He was, 10 years older than I was, and age is a huge factor in this business. So, looking at the lineups of guys and seeing the growing divisions and seeing less and less of bodybuilders coming up that are of caliber of like Phil Heath or Kai Greens is very few and far. And there's a lot of great size, but the condition and the lines and the whole stage presence and presentations of these guys, I don't see anyone that's really a huge threat. I mean, we can talk about the guys on the Olympia stage like from this past year. Big Rami's still, a younger guy, but he's running out of time to put it together. I mean, he's still far from being in his prime, but he's got to get grainier and crisper and just more polished in order to beat Phil Heath. He's not just going to get up there and just demolish Phil Heath with size, because you have to have a little combo of both. Yes, he can beat Phil Heath on every shot, in my opinion, or most of them, if he had the right conditioning, but I just don't know if he can get there, because I don't know if it's his training style or, it's hard when you're 300 and something pounds. I mean,
right.
There's never been anyone like that. I mean, with me, I was considered one of the bigger guys, and I was a 290-pound off-season guy, dieting down to, 260 or whatever. So I was pretty much in striking distance. You just can't imagine a guy being, 330 and dieting down to 300 at the same height.
That's pretty big.
And having enough lines. That's what Phil has dominant over these guys. And the big thing about Phil Heath is his training style. Phil is not, he's not an amateur, and he's not ego-driven where he has to go in the gym and he's trying to impress anyone. He knows exactly what his body needs to do in order to win these competitions. He's got a great coach. Hani's a great eye. I think they have the great combination. I mean, Phil was off his best a lot of years until this past Olympia. But it's amazing that Phil Heath being off is still
better.
Light years ahead of a lot of the other guys. And if a guy can be off and win the Mr. Olympia every year, it speaks for itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Phil will be the first to admit, he wasn't at his absolute best, but he didn't need to be. He still won. And I feel that Phil has the mentality, he has the drive, he has the vision, and he has, most importantly, the physique. He's got the gas left to win and break it. And he's so set on that record. I hate for him to even talk about it because it's like he's at 6. He's not close to 10 yet. You know what I mean? But unless we see someone come up with something really special, which, listen, it can happen. I came out from the back of the pack too. Ronnie Coleman came from last place. I came from second to last to win. So it's not like that's why Phil doesn't get the respect, because Phil Heath came on the scene and he was third in his first Mr. Olympia. I mean, Ronnie and myself had to climb from the very last placings, forward, and I think that's why people said, "Wow, hard work," and what it took to get there. Whereas they think Phil was given those gifts. But listen, guys are just born for this stuff sometimes. And Phil, I said it from day one when I first saw Phil Heath, and I said, "Man, this kid's got all the tools." And people thought I was crazy at the time, and he came up pretty damn quick, and I think he's proven ground. I mean, you can't take away the fact that the guy's won 6 straight. He's won them, a lot of them, pretty damn handedly.
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask you, who you thought was the biggest threat over the course of the next few years. You kind of clarified that you think that while there's other good guys, nobody's really going to push Phil as hard as he needs to be pushed. But let's say we're looking down the road. If you had to pick one of the guys that was on stage, either at this year's Olympia or somebody you saw competing in the pro ranks this year, that maybe 4 or 5 years down the road could be a future Mr. Olympia. If you had to pick out one guy, is there anybody that jumps out to you?
I would say the McCarver guy, Dallas. I would say he definitely can be a great contender to win the Mr. Olympia. He's young, lot of stage presence, a lot of size. He's a lot like Dennis Wolf. It really depends on who's standing in front of him. I mean, listen, bodybuilding shows are won by who you're standing next to, right? So he's young. I don't know any of the younger guys as much. I thought Compton had a lot of momentum at first. He's kind of fallen back a little bit. But you've got the guys like, I think Juan Morel will be contender here, move up in rankings. I mean, Roden's, he's not a young guy, but Roden has so much time off with his passion with his father and all that. He still can compete well into his 40s like a Dexter Jackson. It's just amazing to me that Dexter Jackson is the biggest phenomenon of the whole. I mean, if you want to talk about something, that guy just, when's it stop for him,
Yeah. Dexter, somebody asked him, I don't know if it was a year or so ago, asked him when he was going to hang up, and he said, when I can find a job working 1 hour a day, making well into the 6 figures, and the rest of the day I get to play my PlayStation, that's when I'll retire. But
with him, him to still be a contender and winning shows, I told him he was crazy 2 years ago if he quit. But it just, when Dexter Jackson at 47 or whatever he is, I think he turned 47 or 48 now.
I think he's 47 or 48. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he has no business, being up there and competing and beating a lot of these younger guys, but he is. So he still hasn't slowed down. Sean Roden, like I said, he's a contender. Big Rami's right there. Who else was in the mix this year?
Roden, Rami, Dexter Jackson, William Bonac moved up from 8th to 5th.
Bonac's good. I mean, he's like a smaller guy that really, he surprised everybody. I picked him actually to be a contender in the top 6. He's a newer guy that could come up. I mean, he can only go so far because of his height and his size. I mean, I said that about Dexter too, and Dexter won, but it would be tough, But I think Rami's your biggest, question mark. I think of all those guys. I mean, Wolf returning. We'll see if he can get back to where he's at. But he's creeping up closer to 40 than he is to 30 now. So you're looking at, those guys that were 7th, 8th. I mean, I don't even know who was on those placings. Dallas.
I think Rulli got 6th. Cedric got 7th, McCarver got 8th, Compton got 9th, and Nathan DeAsha got 10th.
Yeah, he's good. Nathan's good too. I think Cedric, we can see him as a top 5 contender, but as far as winning, I think it's going to be a little difficult for him because of the conditioning factor, unless he just gets better and better. He's just got to take it definitely more serious and be more aggressive. A lot of these guys, it's the aggression, man. They just need to get up there and be a little more aggressive and showboat this thing a little bit and kind of try to mess with Phil Heath, Phil Heath just plays games with these guys' heads and no one plays any games back,
I've actually had that discussion a handful of times with a couple of pros throughout the course of the year. A couple of guys that come to mind. I know Justin Compton, John De La Rosa. I mean, John De La Rosa, I'm sure you've had a chance to interact with him. Just as nice of a guy as you can be. But he gets on stage and he's, his personality that you see off stage also projects on stage, which is really laid back, real casual, and I guess the analogy I used is you can be the nicest boxer in the world, but when you get in the ring, you got to punch people in the face, and to me, it's kind of the same thing on a bodybuilding stage. I agree with you 100%. Phil gets out there, he's really aggressive, he makes his presence known, and some of these guys are okay just kind of stepping back a little bit and hitting the poses without any real authority.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all follow leaders, right? And if you don't display yourself as a leader, you're never going to be looked upon as that, So, so I remember telling Phil, when he was when he won, he still was kind of in the background a little bit from me. And people would always say, well, Jay's still the ambassador or the greatest or whatever. And, Phil would always say, oh, Jay's right, my role model, whatever else. And I said, dude, you need to step away from that and become your own man and just, you need to take this thing over. And, and he did that. It's kind of, there's not much talk of Jay Cutler coming back and trying to win Olympias anymore. So I think he's done a great job. I think he's solidified himself as a person of, someone that really can't be looked upon as someone that can be beat very easily. So I would have to say he has a great shot to win, 10. I'm going to predict that's what he'll win. Bar, not getting injured or anything else,
Sure. All right, let's talk a little bit about your Olympia experience. We know that you were on your first Olympia, 1999, I believe. You were on stage with Coleman, Sean Ray, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier, Nasser. I think Dennis James was up there. I mean, you were like you said, second or third to last at that year. What was that like? Your first Olympia experience, being on stage with all those guys who are now looked at as as being legends.
I was excited to get up there, but it sucked because I was 15 out of 16. I wanted to quit. I thought I didn't get compared like I should have. I remember sitting in the hotel room in Mandalay Bay after the event, and I remember I was with Chris Aceto, my wife at the time, and I said, what, am I just that bad? Am I just don't have it? And Chris was like, honestly, man, I just don't get it. Maybe you're just not good, And I remember that he said that, and I started to, take a step back for a minute, and I was like, what's my future in this? Because listen, I wanted to do well. I never thought I could win, but I knew that I compared well with a lot of these other guys. And, I was in the transition. I was moving. Joe Weider moved me to California just after that. I think the show was in September. I moved in November, I think around Thanksgiving. And once I got to California and I started training, I lived in Orange County for 2 years, 99 to 2002. And my whole vision changed. I became a different person because I had so much positivity and so much surroundings that were very positive. It put me in a better environment, and that's when I went through the holidays, immediately started training. I came and won the Night of Champions, which was my first pro show, and I beat the likes of Paul Dillette and Marcus Rule at the time, who was coming up. And then I knew right then. I remember Coleman called me to tell me I won that show in the middle of prejudgings and finals, and I said, wow, this is a great feeling. And then I went to Olympia and moved up to eighth that year. Yeah. And then, of course, then my career really took off the next year when I sat out the whole year and I trained for the Olympia because I think top 10 qualified then. So I finished eighth.
Right.
And then I came and I landed second place and really should have beat Ronnie Coleman at that one, in my opinion, with the scorecard. So, and then I went on to win Arnold Classics, and I never looked back. I never finished below second at the Olympian ever again until I won, and that was it,
When was the first time for you when it really clicked, like, I have a shot at being Mr. Olympia? Was it when you cracked the top 10 in 2000, or was that runner-up spot where, you were ahead of Coleman at prejudging? When did it set in that, I can be the next great?
The funny thing is I wish Chris could join us, because we went on the tour. I remember Kerry Kays, who was Dorian Yates's partner in the DY Nutrition, his original supplement line. He promoted the English Grand Prix in 2000, and he was trying to get guys over, and no one wanted to go on the tour because it was, it was a pain in the ass. After the Olympia, everyone just wanted to eat and relax. But I signed up to compete, and I told him, I said, Kerry, I'll come, but you got to fly Chris Aceto over with me just so I have, because I'd never really been away from a guy that had the eye to really down. So Chris flew over there with me at the time, and it was just me and Ronnie were the two, like, I was the only one besides in the top 10. It was just Ronnie and myself. So, of course, you know how the placings usually go. They usually look at the guys that placed, consistently at the Olympia. So, we were compared at a couple of those shows, and that's the first time I remember Chris said to me, because I came in, I just went crazy, just stripping down and just getting as dry as possible. And I pushed my body harder than I ever did to deplete it down and come into crazy shape. And that was the first time I stood next to Ronnie and actually had a great comparison. And Chris said to me backstage, he's like, you can beat this guy. He says, you can beat him. I'm telling you, in a year, you can beat him. And I'm like, yeah, Ronnie Coleman, you kidding me? I mean, the guy was, the biggest freak out there at the time. So Chris says, just trust me. And I said, what should I do? He said, take the year off. You're qualified. Just take, I had no endorsements that pushed me to compete in many shows, because I had just signed with ISS at the time. I left Weider and went and signed with ISS. And, we trained the whole year. I got, as big as I could in the best condition, and I dieted down for 2001 Olympia. And I remember I was leading into that show, and I had photo shoots lined up prior, and all the people that saw me was like, holy shit, Jay, you're going to shock a lot of people this year. But no one imagined I'd actually go there and I'd get the call next to Ronnie Coleman. Fortunately for me, is when they drew the numbers for us to line on stage, Ronnie and myself were with consecutive numbers, so I actually got to stand next to Ronnie when they called us all out for the lineup.
Sure.
When I stood there from the front, I mean, I really took advantage of Ronnie, at the time, because he was slightly off and my body was peaked. I mean, I had the crazy quads and the sunken abs. I mean, my abs were as deep all the way back to my spine as they've ever been. And the huge shoulders. I mean, so right there in the standing in the lineup, people are like, holy shit, Jay Cutler's beating Ronnie Coleman. So of course I got the call when I, stand and relax was part of was half the show then.
Right.
Quarter turns and the poses and all that stuff. I mean, it counted. So I got the call with Ronnie, and damn, I was in the best shape I ever been in. So I was able to, really, people like, you're going to win. And I'm like, yeah, maybe we'll see. And then, of course, I finished second. I was just happy to be second. I mean, moved up from 8th to second. Who wouldn't be happy?
Right.
It was the first big payday. And then, that was it. I mean, I knew right then that, damn, I can actually win this thing. But Chris thought, from the tour of the year prior, he said, you can win the Mr. Olympia. But I remember I came off stage after prejudging. Chris was crying, because he couldn't believe it. He's like, you just beat Ronnie Coleman, So that's the most emotional I've ever seen Chris Aceto,
Yeah. Now, you were runner-up to Ronnie, 2001, 2003, 4, and 5. At any point, as a competitor, you just want to be the best you can. You want to win the title. At any point, did it become as much or more just about beating Ronnie Coleman than it did being Mr. Olympia? Obviously, with Ronnie being the champion, if you beat him, goes without saying that you won the Olympia title. But did it ever just become about just hunting down Ronnie and just beating him?
Not really. And the reason I'm saying that is I went into every Mr. Olympia, and people won't believe this, but everyone I went into, I thought I was going to win. And I never listened to what people say, oh, Ronnie Coleman's the greatest, you're never going to beat this guy, he's never going to be beaten, this and that. I really thought truly I was going to win, and the reason why is I had a great team around me all the time, a lot of positive energy, and I knew my physique was of caliber. But I really just wanted to win the Mr. Olympia. I mean, that's what I trained my whole life for. And there was one guy standing in my way, yes, but I wasn't sure. You know, I remember there were a lot of guys that I thought were contenders, that had missed the opportunity. I mean, Sean Ray, Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler. So when I won, it was like, hey, you guys, this is for you, you know. But truthfully, I mean, I was just more frustrated because he was an obstacle. That's how I looked at him, as like, okay, this guy has the title, I just need to get it.
Okay.
I had respect for Ronnie Coleman, but I felt that, I had my poses, he had his. He was better from the backside. I was always better from the front, a lot of the front shots, in my opinion, but he just was bigger. But you know what? I always harped on his stomach was always bigger as he got bigger. I always had a flat midsection, and I thought that should be part of it. Yes, I didn't have the smallest waist, but I always had control of my midsection, and I always had deep abs. I always had cross-strided legs, and he didn't. But he did demolish me from the backside and a lot of stuff, and I hate that scenario of all bodybuilding shows, one from the back. I mean, my front was good and his back was better. You know what I mean? So he won.
Right. Now, if we're looking at your Olympia wins, your first win in 2006, you've taken runner-up 4 times. You finally beat Ronnie. You finally get that title you've been chasing for a long time. But you lost it in 2008, came back and won it in just absolutely dominating fashion in 2009. What would you say was a better win for you? Your first title in 2006 or coming back and getting the title back in 2009?
2009, and the reason being is because in 6, everyone thought, okay, Jay has a great shot. Like, there were so many fans, like, because I had been second and been proven so many times that, okay, one of these times he's going to win. And truly, a lot of people did think that I should have won in 05. So when I went in 06, it was like, okay, well, finally he did it. So it was huge. I think it was bigger for the market at that point. But for me to come back after losing to Dexter and everybody writing me off and saying Jay can't win this thing, he's finished, he's washed up, he's got injuries, he just needs to retire. And me coming out and dominating like I did, that was a much greater win for me, in my opinion, because it really just revamped my whole career. And I did the impossible. I mean, not only did I, beat Mr. Olympia on the stage for the, that made history with that in 2006. I was the first one to lose the title and come back to win it.
Back, yeah.
And no one's done that. No one's been able to do that. And it still sticks in my mind as the greatest victory in the fashion I won it in. And I always said that it's not how many times you win it, it's the fashion you win it in, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember very distinctly. I was bouncing at a bar close to where I live, and it was a little bit of a busy night, but I was wrapped up watching the live stream on my phone, and I remember very distinctly you walking out. You kind of hit that front relax shot where you were flexing your quad. And it might have been one of the only times where I've ever seen a Mr. Olympia competition, maybe 2003 Ronnie, 2013 Phil. But I mean, it was really just one of those things where you walked out and it was game over. I mean, was there a level of confidence backstage knowing how you looked versus the other guys that, you were going to get your title back?
Yeah, I mean, when I took my clothes off, it's like, the flashes come out and people are just in there shaking their heads backstage. Like, what's going on, And, it showed when I came out on stage, right? The big question mark is when I turned around from the backside, because that was always something that, was difficult for me to have my back as great as my front. And when I turn around and hit those rear shots, people are like, oh, shit, now Jay's got it. So I think pretty handedly, I mean, Branch was second that year. Dexter got knocked to third, which, was questionable. I think that was the best Branch ever was. But, I knew I was going to win. I'm not going to lie. I knew that coming back, I just had to be better than I ever was. And I knew I was. And I knew that I had a lot in my favor. They loved me being Mr. Olympia. I thought, I still had the physique for it. And, I always said, how do you win greater than this? I think looking back, that should have been the show I retired at. I came back in 10 and I won again. And then 11, 3 weeks from the Olympia, I tore my bicep, but I lost to Phil Heath and got second, which, that could have gone to Kai Green, or I don't think he was third that year. There were a lot of guys that could have won, that position. But I think, once you reach that pinnacle, it's like, how do you accomplish more? Do you do it more for the paychecks or the ego, or do you do it because you want to solidify yourself as one of the greatest ever? If I would have left and walked away with that victory and gone down in the history books with 3 Mr. Olympias and the guy that set history twice, I think, I would have been looked upon as great, probably greater than I am now. Maybe. I don't know. I did it for the fans. I stayed in it just like I came back. I came back in 13 and did it for the fans because everyone wanted to see me come back. I knew I wasn't at what I used to be, but I wanted to get up there healthy. The last Olympia I had a sour taste because I came out with a torn bicep. My arm was just mangled, and I was able to come back and I felt great getting ready for the show. I did that whole lead up on my own for muscular development when I was, putting out daily, blogs before anyone was even doing this shit on YouTube.
Sure.
I got it all on. You can still go on to, I think, the forums and still see Jay's return, and I put up my daily diet and all that stuff. So I gave people a great insight. I did the Living Large series for bodybuilding.com, and just showed the life of Jay Cutler, which, a lot of people still, millions and millions and millions of views on that. It just gave people the opportunity to see a different light. And I had great success. That was probably my most favorite Mr. Olympia was my comeback, 2013, even though it was my worst placing in 12 years. Finishing 6th, a gifted 6th in my opinion. I think, I just kind of set the standard, and, that was about as much as I could accomplish. And, I don't have any regrets. I'm just stating now, looking back and stepping out of myself for so many years now, being off the stage, I can see a lot of things a lot more differently than I did in the past.
Sure. Now, if we're going to talk about looking back, I know you've been asked this question a handful of times. Are there still any regrets about taking 2002 off? Now, for you guys who are a little bit newer to the scene, you got runner-up in 2001. You took 2002 off, and consequently, it was arguably Ronnie Coleman's worst ever Olympia appearance. A lot of people thought Kevin Levrone, who was second, should have won. A lot of people thought Gunter Schlierkamp, who finished 5th that year, could have won the title. Do you look back and think, maybe I could have had 5 if I had gotten back on stage in 2002?
I say no. I know people think that, well, you missed an opportunity, but remember, I moved to Las Vegas. I was building my house at the time, which was very stressful. I was driving back and forth the whole time, and I just, it was just a lot of variables in my personal life that I really couldn't commit to training for a bodybuilding competition. I'm one of those people that needs everything in place and things perfectly. I'm a creature of habit a lot. So I need, that 16 or 20 weeks to train and be focused and have nothing on the outside. I was the guy that shut the phone off for 4 months and never answered calls. Some of my best friends would be like, what's up with Jay? I remember they called my wife at the time being like, why isn't he returning any calls? She's like, he won't talk to you until the Mr. Olympia is over. And people didn't understand it, but I lived my life in a box, and that's how I became great at it. And, it's very selfish, which I think a lot of people would tell you to be great, you have to be selfish to a certain extent. But
to a certain degree, yeah.
I did cut out a lot of anything negative. If anyone called me, I remember people would call me on the phone and be like, start talking about something negative, and I'd hang up on them because I just didn't want to deal with it. And these are people that are close to me, my family, the same thing. I didn't want to hear it because anything negative in my life, it didn't help with the positive things that were going on and keeping me in the position to be the greatest in the world. That's what I was shooting for. So, I don't regret it. Like I said, I don't have a lot of regrets. Just because I said maybe I should have retired after 09 Olympia because there'd be never a greater moment than that, doesn't mean I regret it. I still did great things. I had a lot of things I did for the fans, and I still traveled a bunch, and I still stayed at it. But I knew at that point, it was, in 13 when I stepped away, it was definitely time. I was 40 years old. I wasn't going to get much better at that point. And that's the whole point. What's the point of competing if I'm not going to get better? I just don't do it to do it. I mean, I never necessarily loved competing. I loved being in the gym training, but competing wasn't my favorite part of being a bodybuilder or whatever you want to call it. It was the time in the gym that I loved the most, and it's still what I love the most.
All right, now we had an interesting discussion on the MD forums the other day, and this is a discussion that's been had probably a million times over. And you competed against Ronnie Coleman as many times as anybody. And the question got brought up was either the 1999 version or 2001 version of Coleman at the Arnold Classic. Do you think one of those versions of Ronnie is the best bodybuilder ever to step on any competitive stage? Or if you had to pick a particular physique from a particular year, who would you put as the pinnacle of competitive bodybuilding?
I mean, people say the 98 Coleman when he won the Olympia the first time was pretty amazing. They say when he stripped down in 01 for the Arnold, that was his best. I mean, 03 when he came back, when I thought I was going to win for the first time no one will ever have that physique. So in my opinion, it's the 03 physique. Yeah, he wasn't as crazy conditioned, but he was so damn big.
Yeah, he was massive.
I mean, how do you beat that? So if you want to talk about dominant physiques, I think till the end of time, okay, until the end of time, if Phil Heath today, last this past Olympia 2016, stood next to Ronnie Coleman in 03 version, Ronnie would wipe the floor with him. I hate to say it, because he's just too big. I mean, he was
290, 297, I think, is what they listed him at.
He lies like everybody, but he was whatever. Let's say he was 280. Okay,
still,
yeah, I heard he was like 277 or something, but everyone's full of shit anyway. But he just was way too big for these guys, because Phil Heath, I'm sure, lies about his weight too. I mean, how much does Phil Heath weigh? 240? I don't know.
Clue.
I don't know who tells.
I've been told by a lot of people, whatever you hear that somebody on the Olympia stage weighs, subtract 20 pounds and then take off another 10, and that's probably.
Listen, I was my best at 255. I've competed up to 273, and when I came back in in 09, I mean, I was 254. So, I think actually, Phil had said he was around 240. I think that's what he was at this year, and I think that's real weight. Dexter, as great as he is, and I think consider Dexter Jackson one of the top 2 bodybuilders of all time, by the way, and I'm not the other one. So he lies, I think. I think Dexter lies about his weight.
Embellishes a little bit about his weight, yeah. I've heard that. I'm pretty tight with Dexter. I don't know that he would tell me one way. I don't know if he would tell me one way or another.
He can say whatever he wants because he wins, so it doesn't really matter,
Absolutely. All right, let's fast forward. 2016, you've been away from the competitive stage for a couple of years. You're obviously still in phenomenal shape. Give us a little overview of what your training and your diet regimen looks like now, between all your travel and not trying to maintain the size you did when you were competing.
I wouldn't say I'm in phenomenal shape, but I've stayed in relatively decent shape considering my travel schedule. I think the most important thing is I still eat the breakfast that I ate winning Olympias every morning. I still work out.
Which is
4 days.
What's the breakfast?
I drink 2 cups of egg whites. I have a scoop of protein in there, 2 slices of Ezekiel bread. I have 2 whole eggs and 3 slices of turkey bacon, and 2 packets of grits. So I still have.
It's a lot of food.
Carbohydrates, a lot of protein. Yeah. But the other meals have toned down. I still eat, I have a meal company that actually sends me food now and makes, cater to what my diet is. So I eat about 40 to 50 grams of protein and then 40 to 50 grams of carbohydrates, which everyone knows I was a huge carb eater when I was bigger. And I try to eat 5 meals a day. So that's ideal for me. And like I said, the training schedule, I still do cardio at least 4 days a week for anywhere between 30 to 1 hour a day. But the consistency of meals every 3 hours is, I think, really key to keep the metabolism going. And the consistency of working out, where I don't train at all with heavy weights. And anyone that follows my daily Snapchats or Instagram or whatever else, they'll see that I train, but it's more just for the pump and the conditioning factor. I weigh about 250. My goal is not to be any bigger. I know I go on and off where different clothes I wear make me look bigger, and everyone thinks I'm doing a comeback and I got something up my sleeve. But especially after this Kevin thing, that's kind of been the whole topic all year. Kevin did it, so you
come
can
back, come back, right?
You look better than Kevin. That's what people thought, you know. But the truth is you know, I squat 135 for 10 reps. You know, I don't go over 100-pound dumbbells for any kind of pressing movements or anything like that. But it's just a consistency. I mean, it's just a lifestyle. And I always said that, you know, it's your lifestyle which really dictates how your success will be. And it's the balance of just, you know, the diet, the sleep patterns, and, you know, the training. And the nice thing is being who I am and traveling to these many, many events that relate to fitness, I'm expected to work out. So they want to drag me to the gym because they want to be able to say I trained with Jay or whatever else.
Sure.
And it makes it a lot easier for me to keep me in there. It'd be a lot harder if they were just like influencing me not to be in the gym and eat poorly. But I'm always surrounded by some people that have some sort of relation to the fitness and follow some sort of diet regimen. So it just makes it a lot easier for me. And I still have, you know, the great advantage of traveling all over the world. And you know, the most important thing is managing the food intakes and the training programs that I need to continue to follow.
All right. Yeah, no, and I've seen a handful of the events, and it's always impressive to see yourself and some of the other Olympia champions. Dorian's still in great shape. Lee Haney is still in great shape. You know, we know Ronnie's battled a couple of injuries, so you know, he's had his ups and downs, but all things being considered, he's still in pretty good shape. So it's definitely, you know, inspiring to see you guys still staying after it and still motivating people from that end. But you know, I really appreciate your time, Jay. Before we wrap things up, I want to get a couple of completely non-bodybuilding related questions in. I've been asking these questions for my last couple all-access interviews. So I got 6 questions lined up, totally not bodybuilding related. It's nothing too crazy, but we'll get to know Jay Cutler a little bit better. Question number 1, the first concert you ever went to?
Shit, I'm embarrassed to say.
Jose Raymond's was Madonna when he was 10 years old and he was drinking at the concert. So I don't think it can get any worse than that.
I want to say Elton John or Richard Marx.
I love Richard Marx. Everybody knows I love Richard Marx. I have a Richard Marx 1992 World Tour shirt. Every once in a while, I'll go to like one of the thrift shops or whatever and look for like these old band shirts. And I was there probably 2 months ago or so, and I'm just flipping through the black shirts at the local Goodwill here in Appleton. And I seriously almost shit my pants. I found a Richard Marx 1992 World Tour shirt. It wasn't a reprint. You could tell that this thing was original. So as far as I'm concerned, you definitely don't have to be embarrassed about going to a Richard Marx concert.
I want to say it was 1990. I went to that concert.
Did you get your lighter out for right here waiting and hold on to the nights?
I was with a girl. I remember that. I only went because I was trying to hang out with the girl.
Yeah, well, it doesn't get any better than taking her to a Richard Marx concert, I'll tell you that. So
actually, she got the tickets.
That answer is so much better than I was expecting. All right, question number 2. First celebrity crush.
I honestly never had. Probably Heather Locklear.
Okay, the old 90210. No, it wasn't. She was
a model.
90210. What was it? Melrose Place. Melrose Place. That's what it was.
She dated Billy Joel. No, that was Christy Brinkley.
That was Christy Brinkley. Yeah.
Heather Locklear. She was like a model. Her picture was on my wall doing like exercises or something.
Exercises, right.
She was busted. Performers and those kind of things.
I got busted when I was in 6th grade with 2 posters of Cindy Crawford on the back of my door. I had them in my bedroom door, so anytime my parents opened the door, you know, they couldn't see them. And my mom was vacuuming one time, and she wasn't real happy. I was in like 6th grade. She told us that she wasn't going to allow that smut in her house. And so
I had cards and Heather Locklear on my wall. I liked blondes at that time, which isn't really the case anymore.
All right. Question number 3. If you had one superpower, what would it be?
X-ray vision.
That's exactly Kevin and Callum both said that they could fly. Jose said X-ray vision last week too. We called him a little bit of a pervert because, well, it's Jose, but X-ray vision is what you're going with, huh?
Yes.
All right. Question number 4. Your favorite person to follow on social media currently?
I don't know. I don't know who I really follow as much, besides myself.
Besides myself.
Let's see.
I know The Rock is a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I follow The Rock, but I would say like Bradley Martin probably, because he's always doing crazy stuff, you know.
Yeah. They had that mannequin challenge that everybody's been doing, and Bradley Martin's his mannequin challenge was pretty ridiculous.
I would probably say him, and the reason being is I have a lot of respect for Bradley because, like, I remember Bradley coming around at the LA Fit Expo years ago and hanging around at the booth, and he was like not even known, and he's come such a long way by just his personality and just being a positive influence. And when I go to a lot of events, the kids are wearing a lot of his clothing. And I think that it's, it's very honorable because they have a lot of respect because he motivates them, you know, and he really he competed, but he didn't achieve major status on the stages. He's just been an influencer, and people are, driven by that. And I just think it's really cool that someone has become from such little and so far in so short a time to becoming so notable, and he still walks around the expos, and he makes himself present and all that. So I have a lot of respect for that. We're supposed to do a collab sooner or later of us two together, so I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll definitely be looking forward for that. All right, question number 5: your favorite non-bodybuilding athlete, past, present, anybody?
I'm a huge Peyton Manning fan. I've always been. So I've always followed his career. I was a huge Colts fan. I have his jersey on my theater wall.
Nice.
So I've always followed his success.
All right. And my last question, this one's probably a little bit more difficult. If you could spend 1 hour having a conversation with a historical figure, who would it be?
I would say Michael Jordan, probably. I mean, I know it's an athlete, but I would say Jordan, because I don't think there's anyone that's, I'm interested in, in sports and everything else, but I just think he's been a huge influence, worldwide, positive for a lot of people. And I think, the conversation would be, interesting with him.
Follow-up question: how many pairs of Jordans do you own? Because I've seen you at a lot of shows with a different pair on every time.
I don't count.
You don't count.
I'm not a collector, believe it or not. I wear them. So, I don't know. I bought 3 this week. I know that.
Which ones did you get?
I have no idea. My shoe guy just sends them and then they come. That's what I mean. I'm not a collector, so I don't follow. I like ones. That's what I wear the most. I wear high top ones.
Yep.
But I think this week I bought 3 pairs.
Okay.
3 pairs.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll see you wearing them at expos coming up or some events. But I tell you what, Jay, we really appreciate the time. This interview ran, I think, a little bit longer than either of us had expected, and that is certainly not a bad thing at all, at least coming from my end. So once again, appreciate it. Before we do go, there is one more thing I wanted to do, and we talked about this before the interview got rolling. You have a shirt on, and I'm going to have you sit up a little bit and tell us what the logo is. It says #LoveUp. Established 2015. Let us know what that's about.
Well, it's a charity for kids. I mean, basically, this was John Jay. He's a big DJ personality, and he has for kids. He does this thing, Love Up, and you said he does it for the dogs too now, right?
Dogs and kids, displaced kids that need a home.
Yeah, kids that need a home. He helps them find homes, and he does now the same thing with dogs. I didn't actually know that part, but Love Pup, and it's funny because someone reached out to me in his team, and they wanted to do a social media shout out, and he interviewed me at the Olympia, was for the Mr. Olympia, right? We did that interview. this year, and we talked about the Olympia and all that, and he wanted me to do a shout out and wear the shirt for social media, which I think is awesome. Now we have that capability to do that. So it was great. He's doing a great thing, I think, for a lot of people, and something positive, and that's what I try to work with. I mean, I want to work with all positivity. So, anyone that wants to promote anything that will help, kids or people in need, I mean, I'm all for it. So I'm just glad I had the opportunity to do that, and thankful for him.
All right, rack up a few more good guy points for Jay Cutler. So, all right, man. Once again, I really appreciate your time. I'm sure I'll be running into you again sooner or later.
LA Fit Expo, right?
What's that?
LA Fit Expo.
There's a pretty strong chance I'll be out there. I know Sean will be there. I'm not 100% sure if I'll be there, but I definitely want to try to get out there. I haven't been there yet, so I'm definitely looking forward to it. And it's middle of January isn't all that nice weather-wise here in Wisconsin, so it would be a nice getaway for me. So,
of course.
But all right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of MD All Access. Once again, huge thanks to Jay Cutler. Appreciate your time as always. Best of luck with everything in the future. That's going to do it for us, guys. We are out.